can go back.
I had trouble with anger because my father was an angry man, and I didn't like the way that looked, so I never allowed myself to express anger. Really, to this day. Have you ever known me to be angry and
Well, yes.
express anger?
Yes, I have.
Oh.
But I do think you you try to hold it in. You don't give vent to it all the time.
Yes, I have. When my husband told me he was leaving me for another woman, I dumped the garbage into his shoes, which was standing next to the garbage can, and then I quickly fished out all the garbage and put it back in the garbage can.
So he never knew?
No, he was standing right there.
Oh, okay. Did he say anything about it?
He had his mouth open. So that was one time I recall being angry. And then I also said at that time, I hope you die. And he said, no matter what you did to me, I could never say that. Oh, that's when I dumped the garbage. That's right. Is there some part of your life, like your second husband, you want to talk about? You had 3 husbands. You only mentioned the first.
Well, the first was a real mistake. And, oh God, this is really embarrassing.
Well, then maybe you don't want to say.
Well, I'll tell you because it's so silly. He was a dental student, and I married him when he was a dental student. And in my mind, I had made a commitment to see him through dental school. So I stayed with him those really miserable 4 years till he graduated dental school and got a job, which was 5 years, and then I left. Now, really, when I look back on that, I would really say, Ruth, you shouldn't have done that.
Now, was it his mother who said she couldn't come to the wedding?
Yeah, his mother, who was really, I guess obviously she didn't want him to marry anybody. When we got married, she never came to the wedding. She said she had nothing to wear.
If I had to live my life over again, I would have stayed in Israel.
Yes. And if you had your life to live over again, is there anything else you would do?
I would have married someone else.
Well, you actually did marry somebody else.
Eventually, yes.
But you would have married somebody else the first time.
Right.
When I met Bob, I was 53, and I had known various guys, and it was those learning experiences maybe which made me appreciate him because he was really a grown-up. And I love him because one of the reasons is he's so affectionate. I am such a lucky woman. Every day he tells me he loves me and I'm beautiful. And I don't think that. And he's funny. You know, he's endlessly creative in his mind and enjoyable. We read each other snippets out of the newspaper, or he tells me about his childhood. And it's easy to live with him for the most part. So
We'll have to come back and interview you both on the subject of marriage. Down the road.
Bob is an expert on the subject of marriage.
Oh, God.
And my second husband was a painter, and one of the reasons I sort of fell in love with him was because one day we were leaving the Art Students League, and we walked along and there was a crack in the sidewalk. And he stopped and he said something like, no one would realize how beautiful the crack in the sidewalk was. And I thought, aha, he is going to teach me how to see, because he was a very good painter, and he saw color in a way that people did not see color. And actually, he did help. Of course, his personality was so strong that it was hard not to do it as he did it.
When did you come to America?
1955.
And what brought you here?
I decided that I didn't like myself as a dancer. I didn't think I had enough of a talent. And my dream was to become a choreographer. So I went to Juilliard.
And did you become a choreographer?
No, I went to D.C. to visit another aunt and found a husband. I think I was looking for one. I came to this country and I was speaking with my hands, okay? So my husband says to me, look, in this country, you know, it's not. So I started talking like, you know, hands here, like Deborah Carr, and we tried very calm, trying very hard. Finally, after a few months, I couldn't take it anymore, and I said to him, this is me, and this is how I talk, and this is how I'm always going to talk, and leave me alone.
Is there something about dance that has stayed with you even after you stopped, you know, performing and dancing? Is there something you think has carried over or not?
Of course it has. It shaped me.
Would you care to tell us what your husband said when he left you?
It's been a 10-year audition. You didn't get the job.
When I met Thad, the man I'm married to, the way I felt about him, you know, like little things, like
Well, that's not a
like the
little.
first time he kissed me, you know. Really interesting idea. I wanted to have a car and go shopping for the car in a supermarket. So I thought it would be a kind of a better life in the suburbs, and we moved to New Jersey. And I have really never identified with New Jersey, sadly. I find life was more interesting in Manhattan.
It was in Manhattan that you were almost gunned down.
Oh yeah, that was with Thad, my husband, and we went to the Thalia, was a movie house, 95th and Broadway. I had a new car. I had just gotten a new car, a LeBaron, I forget who made it. Very pretty car, two-tone. So Thad and I, after the movie, were sitting in the front seat drinking coffee, talking about the movie. And I remember thinking, you know, we really shouldn't have the windows open. But I didn't say anything. Then the next thing I knew, these two men came to the window, which was open. And they took a gun and put it at Thad's throat and said to Thad, get out of the car. And time seemed to really stop. And I noticed I had my wallet on the dashboard, and the other man came around to the other window, and I looked at him, and he looked at me, and then he walked away. And I remember thinking, what's going to happen now? Am I going to get out of the car? Am I not going to get out of the car? All this was very quick. And without thinking about it, I took my cup of coffee and I threw it in the guy with the gun's face, the one who had. Thad said this kind of changed the momentum. So he put his hand on the horn and honked, and the man said something like, stop that honking, but Thad didn't stop the honking. So the two of them just very quietly walked away. And then somebody came out and said, should I call the police?
You could have said, no, but could you please get me another cup of coffee?
And yet you feel that the pairing that you had with your first husband was not totally blissful.
Yeah, but on the other hand, I saw with Simon how you can be so close.
Simon is your second husband.
Yeah. But you're not taping this, are you?
Oh, I am, but I don't,
Oh.
anything you don't want on here,
No, I don't
just tell
care.
me.
I don't
Ask me, ask me.
You're so young and beautiful.
One, I'm not young and I'm not beautiful and I'm 85, so we'll just start from that level.
Well, what about all the men everywhere we go flirt with you?
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think maybe I flirt back. I mean, I know I say certain things that are with Ted, like when I was in the gynecologist's office and he was examining me with the nurse holding my hand, suddenly I started to sing, "Take my hand, I'm a stranger in paradise." So I mean,
What?
why, I don't know. Why, I don't know why.
You're impish.
I guess so.
I think we should all feel grateful that we've made it this far. At the same time, it's such a weird experience, which I hope you all get to see one day, feeling a constant diminishment of your attributes.
Physically, it's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can feel from, maybe because of all the years, I remember the first time I realized I just can't, my leg doesn't go where it used to go, you know?
Yeah.
Suddenly, right now, I don't have the stamina I had 3 months ago.
Yeah.
I think dancing makes you more aware of the physical shape of your body.
Yeah.
And you depend on it when you're deprived of your I remember the first time, I couldn't believe it. I was in my 30s, and the leg always went high, and now it's just betraying me, and that sense of betrayal goes on and on. Yes.
I feel I am lucky in that I have a temperament. I have a great sense of humor. And one nun told me one time, "This is going to save your life." You know? And that's always been a constant. And I guess I'm somewhat upbeat. I've been depressed from time to time, but so in those ways, I'm very the same. I think I've had some experiences with coworkers that made me more tactful, you know, learning to not say everything I thought was funny.
How are you feeling about growing old, Bob?
Horrible.
Because of infirmity, or?
Yeah, because I'm not able to do the things that I was able to do. I mean, one of my things is hiking in the mountains. I mean, that's how we met. You know, it just pisses me off. Put it bluntly.
Oh, I really have to say the sex, which I suppose, sex is much better for me as an adult than it was when I was young. It really is. It was, I don't know if sexual things from some people peak when they're very young and then go downhill, or is it different for men and women, which I assume it is. But for me, it's been an uphill climb.
Well, that's wonderful. You may be making history.
I don't think so.
Anything you want to say about growing old that you haven't said?
Not growing.
You don't seem to want to talk about growing old, actually. I have the feeling.
Maybe that helps not growing old. I think that's a pretty old-fashioned concept, too.
What?
You don't talk about certain things.
And yet I think of you as a very outspoken person, which I never will again, of course. You feel wiser than when you were younger?
Indeed, I do. Yeah, much.
But something
I
that
don't feel wiser.
something you've learned, I mean, that
I don't
helps you
feel
through
wiser.
it. You don't feel wiser.
I don't feel wiser. I don't think I really know more. I've experienced more.
What were the circumstances like when you were growing up? What kind of room did you have? And
Absolutely dreadful apartment. Toilet in the hall, shared with other families. Bathtub in the kitchen. Kerosene stove.
what, did you have a bedroom of your own?
No.
Where did
I
you
said
sleep?
in the story, I slept in the dining room.
I grew up in Virginia, and my family came to Virginia in 1619. And my grandfather, my father were very wealthy. And I could have gone into my father's railroad supply business, but I didn't think that would work. So right after the war, I came to New York. I was going to be a social worker. And then I ended up living in Little Sicily on Thompson Street, which is Fifth Avenue extended.
Have you felt in your life as if you were an immigrant, or is that not relevant?
I think I was too young to feel that way, but I hated living on the Lower East Side in poverty. And I have friends now who grew up in the same neighborhood at the same time and had very positive feelings about that. There was, they say, a sense of community. They played with the other kids in the street all day and remember it as being a joyful time. But my experience was of great sadness and squalor, and there was nothing about it except for the library that I enjoyed.
And I went to medical school, and then I really started to work. I found something that was rewarding, demanding, something I knew my father would approve of.
One of the highlights of my life is an odd little moment. It was when my granddaughter Georgie was maybe about 3, and it was a beautiful sunny spring day, and we'd go to the park, and on the way we would chase squirrels up the tree. It was her idea, of course. And I remember it as a sacred moment. I have no idea why it looms so large in my memory.
I remember I was quite young. I was 10, 11, 12. I was in a hammock in my neighbor's yard. And I was lying in the hammock and looking at the sky. And I suddenly realized that death was nothing to be afraid of, because I was the same as the sky, and I could never die, because I was like everything and everything was like me. So my identity became cosmic, I guess. I don't know if that's the right word. And that's how I felt. At that moment there was no fear, which was unique for me.
Is there anything that you feel you'd like to pass on to?
That always makes me want to cry. First of all, it's so personal. that it's hard to tell anybody.
Which that last memory.
Yeah. Yeah, it really makes me want to cry, but I'm not going to cry.
You are crying.
I am crying. Well, in that case, I'll put my glasses on.
It's all right to cry.
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
crying along with you. I was always getting beaten up by tough Irish and Italian girls, and I thought it was because I was good in school. But I've met other people who did well in school and didn't get beaten up, so I don't know what that was about. And then later, when I was about 13, we moved to Williamsburg, and I got beaten up by girls there too, Irish girls.
Uh-huh.
I considered myself brave because I allowed myself to get beaten up without crying. I didn't know how to fight back, but that restored a good feeling about myself that I didn't cry.
Would you say that you have, these events made you angry?
I think they made me feel there was something wrong with me, actually, which contradicts what I just said a moment ago, but there you have it. What about you, Mary Jo? What was your early life like? You told me that you became a nun at a young age. How old were you?
Just 18.
And what caused that?
Well, I had gone to a Catholic girls' school, and I admired some of the nuns, and I felt a calling. You know, a priest would come and preach to us about how that's the highest vocation. But looking back on it, I think I felt lonely, and I felt isolated. My family was not an emotive type of family. I knew my dad especially loved me, and my mother, but they weren't huggers or anything like that. And I think it was an approved, there was social approval involved, and it would bring me into a community. And I just had the feeling that that's what I should do. But then, as I got a little older, I remember one day I was washing my hair in the sink in my bedroom, the cell, as they call them. And I looked in the mirror and I saw gray hair. And that was the first, oh, I'm gonna get older. And I thought of some of the older nuns who were really crabby, and some of them had rather stunted or twisted personalities. And I thought of my life as a nun, and it made me think of a long, narrow hallway with, it was like more of the same.
Do you make things with your hands?
No, somehow I'm resistant. I don't know why, but I'm so resistant. Because it's self-defeating to be a perfectionist. And I probably prefer not to fail. I'd rather not try and end up failing.
You think of yourself as a perfectionist?
On some levels.
What part did the friends play in your life? Did you have many friends outside your marriage?
Not really. Coming to a new country, it wasn't very easy adjusting to living here. I was hoping to drag Victor, the man I married, back to Israel, but he didn't want to go. Making friends was not that easy.
Is there anything about old age that you would like to say that you haven't been asked? Or?
I think, you see, you and Eleanor it has its drawbacks and it has its advantages. You live with your daughter, Eleanor lives with David, with Lisa, Eleanor lives with David. I don't think you guys realize how lonely old age can be.
Well, if one has friends, it isn't.
I don't think it has to do with friends.
Or interests. You have a lot of interests, don't you?
Even so, there's a sense of,
I mean, I have read a lot about old people feeling lonely. And where do you think that comes from?
well, as it should be. The children have their families, they're busy with their own, and you have no, I mean, I think the world is meant to be pairs. People, I mean, Noah took them to the ark in pairs, okay?
Well, it sounds like you didn't enjoy your young years that much.
No, I don't think I did. I didn't have the kind of environment that I wanted. Nobody beat me. I don't mean it was that, but it was kind of lonely for a kid like me who was a little odd, you know, who liked literature and liked to draw and liked fantasy and liked imagining things and overdid everything. I was with very moderate people. And then I grew so much taller than everybody else in my family.
Why was that a problem?
Well, because I was just so tall relative to them, and my mother wanted a boy, my father possibly wanted a boy, so I was sort of the boy in the family, which, you know, a little girl doesn't want to be the boy in the family. And I also want to do a good job. I have a standard. I really want to do it. I don't want to have to do it. And that's interesting because when I was little, I was very afraid of accomplishing anything. I was afraid of success. I really was. Maybe to the degree I was afraid to finish a crossword puzzle.
Really?
Really, it's so hard to believe.
Why were you, any insight into why you were afraid of success?
I think I don't really have any. I haven't thought about it very much. Thank you.
Sure.
I had an older sister who was very pushy, and I think she wouldn't have liked the competition. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not true. Maybe being successful would make me noticed, and I was afraid to be noticed. That is possibly more like it. I didn't feel worthy of being noticed.
But what was so wonderful about the books was I considered myself an oddball, different from other people in the neighborhood. And that was partly because I was dark-skinned and the kids called me nigger. And I was often taken for black, actually, for a mulatto. And because I had very kinky hair and dark skin. And they called me Maki because I was born in Poland. I don't know where that word comes from, by the way. So I wasn't too fond of the kids in the neighborhood. And when I discovered books, I felt that I found friends, that these were my people. And it was a great comfort to me. My mother was very upset at my reading obsessively. She thought it was not wholesome and that I should get some fresh air, which I still don't do enough of.
What I think is the worst thing is when you show yourself and the response you get is they mock you. They either can get sarcastic or imitate you or sneer or just show somehow that you feel really like nothing. And that's the fear, I think, of being, not even being booed, but being scorned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's I think the worst thing, because it makes you feel so dumb.
Did this happen to you at a particular time in your life? I mean, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's happened to me when I was younger. I remember the little thing, once someone sent me out, a bunch of things. My sister used to have a game she would play with her friends that they didn't know who I was. And I would say, it's me. And they would say they didn't know me. That was not a nice game. And another thing, once my sister and her friends gave me a drink, like Coca-Cola, but they put all kinds of terrible things in it, and it tasted terrible. But I drank it, and then they told me what they had done. And so, that kind of thing, and even little things like, I think they once asked me to get a hanger, and I came in with like 12 hangers, and they made me feel so stupid. So those are the things I can remember. And people do that.
Is there anything you're particularly, or things that you're particularly proud of that you've been?
That's a good question. Yes, I'm pretty pleased at my relationships with friends and family. I think I've done well in that department. I've been a good friend and a good mother, I think. That's very satisfying.
So that's the association of all people, is that it?
That's what we are.
Or no spring chickens.
Hopefully we'll get older and older and older.
As the day wears on, you mean, or?
No.
As life wears on.
Generally, as we wear out and life wears on. Okay, what are we supposed to do?
What we're going to do is do improv. We give you a bare assignment, and the first person speaks, and then the second person relates to that.
It's like the way kids tell a story,
Yeah.
Any questions you guys have ever wanted to know about anything?
This is pretty.
She knows the answer.
Now, how does time go forward and backward at the same time?
Bouncy, bouncy.
Bouncy, bouncy. Thank you.
Nothing.
Oh, who's the expert?
Mary Jo now.
What, how can they expect us to believe in the Immaculate Conception?
A very good question. You know how hard it is to keep a house clean. So how can any conception be immaculate? I think it's a contradiction in terms. It's hard to have anything immaculate.
Especially conception.
Especially conceptions.
And what about Jesus coming back to after death?
After death, that's a big one.
How can I be sure that I can come back after death?
Well, owe someone money because they'll always be after you to get you to come back.
Very good idea. Thank you so much.
Anytime.
I do happen to be an authority on just about everything. I didn't ask to be, but it just evolved that way.
I have a
Why
question.
is there something rather than nothing?
Well, you see, there was this primordial slime, and out of that primordial slime, we and everything else has evolved. I mean, I'm as surprised as anybody else.
My husband, he comes to work every day, and he shaves and he gets all dressed up, and he goes every night. He comes back, he smells of perfume. You think, and then he's singing a lot. You think that he may have a girlfriend?
I don't think that has anything to do with primordial slime.
A primordial slime ball.
What kind of slime is he?
Hard thing to accept, but your husband may well be primordial slime.
Do you think he's green slime or or yellow slime?
Well, I'd have to know more about him to answer that.
Well, he has.
What color are his
He
pajamas?
has a penis. Does that
He
mean
has a penis.
anything?
What color are his pajamas?
Green.
I don't think he wears pajamas.
Then he's probably green slime.
You think I should be sad or glad? Because it doesn't bother. You know, it doesn't bother me.
Well, probably you should be glad that you're rid of him. On the other hand, sad that you'll probably never meet anybody else again.
Why do you think I can't meet anybody? There are a lot of nice girls out there.
Listen, I really like her. She could meet me. In fact,
Did any
we
of
wrote
you
it up
belong
in
to a club when you were a kid that had jackets and
Girl Scouts.
leathers?
Girl Scouts.
Girl Scouts? What about you in Israel? Did you belong to anything?
Haganah.
What was that?
Underground. It was British.
Oh,
I must have been.
What a club.
Then we got lectures about how to behave if the British catch us and take out our nails. And I knew that they took out my nails. I would tell them everything. I didn't know anything anyway, but I would tell them anything.
Lucille Ball.
Dusty. That's your color.
I forgot to wear.
So who are you now? Who are you being?
I'm somebody waiting for coffee.
Do you want to say anything now that you're in that wig?
Ooh, you.
How do I look?
I don't know who you are.
Gives you a southern accent?
Yeah.
Dolly Parton.
Yes.
Want to be Dolly Parton?
I want to be Vivian Lee.
Oh.
Oh, sorry.
That's what she said in Gone with the Wind. How do I look? Okay, that's it.
Think about tomorrow.
You look like little orphan Annie.
Now it's your turn.
Very effective, though. I don't know why Lisa thought that when she just go, oh, that's great. Oh.
I look like Harpo Marx.
No, actually, you look like Charles II.
Oh, you look like a 16th century
Yes, he does.
cavalier.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
You need a ruffle on
That's
your.
right. Exactly. Like one of your forebears.
Yes, you really do.
With hair just like that.
The Sun King.
Except it's hard to get a good
In the French court.
Inches.
This will be my exercise.
Now feel free to critique them if you like.
Who begin? Come on, Barbara, not for me.
Okay. What arms are
towards the sky, your nipples facing the ceiling. Gotta find them first. It's too beautiful to not mark it. I don't know. Somebody else take over.
Okay. I want you to stand as straight as the most beautiful statue you have ever seen. Your neck is growing, your spine is lifting out like an accordion. I want your chin up, your glance up to heaven, and
Did you say glands up to heaven?
glance.
Oh, glands.
And lift. And when you haven't lifted any more, then you do one last lift. Your ribs are separated. And your neck is growing. And now you look worthy of something. I'm pleased with you all.
Four Hadassah ladies die and go to heaven. Barbara, can you hear this?
Yes, four Hadassah
Four
ladies.
Hadassah ladies die and go to heaven, and the gatekeeper looks at his list and he says, "You're not down here." And they protest, but he says, "No, you'll have to go to hell." And he calls Satan and says, "I'm sending down four Hadassah ladies," and they go down to hell. And then God comes along and says to the gatekeeper, "Weren't we expecting four Hadassah ladies?" And the gatekeeper says, "Oh, they weren't on the list, so I sent them down to hell." And God says, "Get them right back." So he calls Satan and says, "Listen, I made a mistake. Send those Hadassah ladies back." And Satan says, "Oh no, they were just here 3 hours and they raised $100,000 for air conditioning." Add that to your repertoire.
I have one that has a certain similarity. This plane is going to crash. And the hostess says, "We're going to crash. Nothing to do about it. Do something religious." So a guy takes his head and goes around, takes a collection.
It's a success. To what?
To us.
To us.
To us.
Who is the goddess?
To money.
Inspiration.
To money.
Money.
To love.
To love.
To us with money.
And friendship. And
love.
news.
To us with friendship and money.
Is there anything you're particularly proud of that you've done?
I did have a lot of stories and articles published in addition to my book, and I'm pleased about that.
The children, they are decent human beings. That's something I hoped for and received. Of course, losing a daughter is the worst.
And what helps you apart from
Good friends
good friends are important?
and dancing. Dancing is
How often do you dance?
sometimes 3, sometimes 4 times a week.
That painting up there, if you can see it, that was at the Art Students League. That's a famous model called, her name was Susie, and she posed for the fountain in the plaza, the beautiful fountain. And that's what she looked like when she was older. I was in my 20s when I did that painting. And that one next to it is the technique, which is kind of interesting. You do it on plexiglass, and then you put it in a printing press. You wet the paper, and the paper wet goes onto the plexiglass, and you get one print, a mirror image print. Oh, that.
This painting here?
Yeah,
The
it's a
nude?
pastel, the nude. That was a demonstration at FIT teaching pastel technique. It's not, one of the best I've done, but it's there, so I can show it to you.
So how do you make the most of the time that you have? I know you sing.
I do, which is wonderful fun, and I enjoy the group of women I sing with, and I sing around the house all the time.
Nowadays, nobody knows the Rheingold commercial.
Oh.
My
I
beer
could
is
sing
Rheingold,
it
the
too.
dry beer.
Sing you to it. My beer is Rheingold, the dry beer. Think of Rheingold whenever you buy beer. It's not bitter, not sweet, extra dry flavor treat. Won't you try extra dry Rheingold beer?
We're sitting here in the house of my old friend Carmel Friedman, who's dead now. She died a few years ago. And I never hear from her. She never writes. She never calls. That's one of the worst things about growing old and having your friends grow old. And when they die, it's hard to get your mind around that people are here one day and gone the next. And they're such precious beings. It's a lovely cemetery. Even so, I don't imagine people are happy to be dead here. Or anywhere. Maybe stepping on some people here, but they won't mind. Ah, here we are. This is where April is buried. She's the daughter of Carmel and Nanny, who died when she was 19. And Carmel never recovered from her death. Carmel was also a great admirer of my short stories and was very sorry that I stopped writing.
Where do you think she's buried?
She's right here. She and Manny are right here. They haven't got the tombstones yet.
What is that story you've got there?
This is one of Carmel's favorite stories. It's published in the Virginia Quarterly years ago. Raymond Navarro, My Own True Love.
Okay. You want to go into the light to read?
Yeah. When I was 13, everybody had somebody except me. My parents had their children. The Sirens, a band of furies at Corliers Junior High School for Girls on Vladeck Street, where I was held captive, had the Hunters, a band of terrorists from a nearby industrial school. Jacob had his God, and even Bila, Jacob's wife and my mother's closest friend, who felt more alone than I did, she, because of her obsessive devotion, had Tyrone Power, Cary Grant, Robert Taylor, and Spencer Tracy. But the daughter of Mordecai Greenberg had not where to lay her head. So I went to the movies. The theater on Cannon Street where we lived changed features every day. Bila and I were devout patrons and came home nightly, laden with free dishes and dreams.
I think, weren't we in Oregon when I made that picture?
Yes, yes.
That was I have a classmate who lives in Oregon, and we were out visiting him, and I made this.
That's very nice too.
Yeah, this is on the high plains of Oregon, east of the mountains.
Did you study photography?
Not really, but I've taken courses. Yeah, I have studied some, but not, it's been intermittent. And I'm actually, my daughter and I are going to take a course in New York in photography, a one-day deal.
A little bit later, I decided to quit teaching, quit art, though I did a little work at night for money, teaching at night. And I really fell in love with writing.
Ruth Lillian.
As you can see, I'm obviously a snake. Would that you wouldn't see me as evil. It hurts. It all started when Eve and I were in the garden and she saw the apple tree. Eve was gorgeous there. She was naked. She didn't know she was naked. Only I knew she was naked. I'm a snake. What could I do about it? Pardon me, Bolshevsky.
I went to school every day accompanied by Jane Austen or the Bronte sisters, as though those ladies could protect me from the hazards of life among the sirens. The teacher was the nominal head of the classroom, but it was clear that real authority rested with the savage maidens in blue and white club sweaters. I tried to pretend that they did not exist. It was impossible. I tried to pretend that I did not exist. They would not allow it. They poked into all the soft spots in my soul. They jeered at me for knowing my lessons. They stole my possessions. They fell on me in a pack and beat me. Still, with Byla solidly behind me, I remained silent. Only with Byla did my passive resistance pass for stoical wisdom. To all the others and to myself, I was a schlemiel. The day after we saw Waterloo Bridge, I met my own Waterloo. I was walking home from school alone, recreating in my head the most effective scenes from the movie. Suddenly I heard close behind me the shrill cries of the sirens, and in an instant I was ambushed. The other girls giggled feverishly. One of them made a practical suggestion. "Hey, Angie, why don't you fix her up with Tommy?" She pointed to the tallest of the hunters up the street. 100 paces from me stood Tommy, grinning wickedly. From the expression in his eyes, I had an instantaneous revelation that the truth, according to my dear friend Byla, would not clothe my nakedness in the raw wind of the world in which I had to live. I shot across the street and did not stop running until I was safely home. I stayed home from school that week. I lay on my daybed in the dining room and pretended to be sick. I thought and thought until my brains ached. How shall I make myself invulnerable?
So Tamar, tell me again, you think that young people don't go out for this so much anymore?
The younger generation generation that is not attracted to folk dancing.
It's a shame, no?
Yeah, they don't know what they're missing. When I awoke, it was dawn. The house was silent. I could hear my mother snoring heavily in the next room. I sat on the window ledge in the dining room, which was my part-time bedroom, and watched the sun come up. The air was chill against my clammy skin. The sun seldom shone on Cannon Street, and it was marvelous to see. I felt the burst of joy shot through with a thin thread of pain. I knew, as if an oracle had told me, how to deliver myself. That morning, I went back to school. But before I left the house, I forged with a cunning and deceit I had never possessed a devious document. And while Bila slept, my demon stole into her scrapbook and extracted her favorite dream. The sirens rejoiced to see me. The victimizer is bound to the victim as the lover to his beloved. Before they could scoff or threaten, I pulled out of my pocket the photograph of Raymond Navarro and the letter I had written to myself, placing them in front of me on the desk and studying them lovingly. As I had anticipated, Angie, who sat alongside me, snatched both away. She looked with interest at my hero, then unfolded the letter and proceeded to read it aloud to the other girls. Dearest Shalamith, California is a mighty lonesome place without you. I saw Tyrone at the Brown Derby yesterday with a girl who looked just like you. I was going to run over and squeeze her, and then I realized it wasn't you. I'd give anything to hold you in my arms again and kiss those tempting lips. Boy, you really surprised me. You sure don't look like the Spitfire you are. You've got more than all of these slinky dames running wild out here in Hollywood. Where did a kid your age pick up so much savvy about love? I'll cut the throat of anyone who dares lay a hand on you. You're my woman, and don't you forget it. Keep this picture close to your heart till I come back, and then I'll prove it to you that I'm your own true love, Michael. I could hardly bear to listen to my own blasphemy. My cheeks were hot with shame. I had never told the tiniest lie before then. What evil force had I let loose? But when I saw the awed faces of my gulled tormentors, my conscience was stilled. From then on, the conflict was no longer between the sirens and me. The battle had shifted, and the enemy became an internal one. Because I had succeeded so guilefully in preserving my skin, I lost that fine, harmonious sense intuitively felt as a child that I and my deeds were one. But I had read it myself in the Bible. A living dog is better than a dead lion. Bila would not have agreed, and although I did not see much of her in the years that followed, anointed as I was with popularity and always dispersing fresh deceits, it often occurred to me that I may have capitulated too readily. For to the living dog himself, it is possible that a dead lion is better.
What relation does that story bear to your life?
Well, it was based on something that actually happened. It wasn't a picture of Raymond Navarro. It was a picture of an actor whom I'd never heard of, but it was like a snapshot picture. It was great for the purposes that I used it for, and it worked very much as I said in the story.
What, if any, ruminations come to mind at the moment about whether it is better to be a living dog or a dead lion? Any thoughts?
You know, I haven't thought about it since then. As you know about me, I'm such a fan of living. But I think it's possible to not live like a dog, but to live courageously. I'm not saying I've done it, but it seems to me it's possible. I suppose to do that you do have to risk dying.
the people that you've met over the course of your life, you think that people generally are living dogs or dead lions or what?
I think most of us will do whatever we need to preserve our skin.
That would be the living dog.
Yeah, but we all greatly admire people who will risk their lives and insist on being who they are.
Do you think you have any lion in you?
I think I have a bit of lion in me. I wish I had more, but maybe a baby lion.
Okay, anything else you would like to say?
Goodbye.